How you doing, guys? Jake Guitar here. Today what we're going to do is we're going to change the brakes on a 2014 Toyota Highlander. Let's get started. By the way, guys, if you've not subscribed, please subscribe. We got a lot of cool videos coming up ahead. Alright, these are the tools and the supplies you're going to need. First things first, of course, make sure you have a jack. You got your jack stands right here. There are your brake pads right there. There's some brake parts cleaner, and right there is your ceramic extreme brake lubricant. It prevents you from getting that squeal. Here's your C-clamp. There's a ratchet drive here with a 14mm socket on it, and right here I have an open-end wrench. Now, yes, this is a standard size wrench, and the reason why I have a standard size wrench here instead of a metric is because I don't have the proper wrench that's thin enough, and I'll tell you exactly the reason why you need this size right here. It's very, very close to what you need, and it's the thin size. We're going to get into a very tight spot. Here's some gloves. I like to use 4 gloves for front and back brakes, and I'll show you exactly why I do that. And just in case you need to get the car up a little bit higher, I always have some blocks of wood just in case. Alright, let's get started. Alright, for safety reasons, you always want to take your foot, push it down on the emergency brake, and lock the back wheels, so no matter what, if your car's on a slant like it is on my driveway, it's not going to roll. First things first, while the car is still on the ground, what you're going to do is you're going to very, very carefully loosen up these lug nuts. Don't take them off completely, just loosen all of them, just a little bit. Alright, so once we got the lug nuts loose, then we're going to get the jack into place and start raising up the car. Now what I like to do is I like to put a little block of wood in there because my jack doesn't go high enough so that the wheel comes completely off the ground. And always get your jack stand and get the jack stand into place. Just in case something happens with your jack, you need the jack stands in place. Once the wheel is high enough and you're able to get the wheel off the car, then you can go ahead and loosen the lug nuts the rest of the way. At this point you want to put your gloves on because dealing with brakes can be quite messy. Alright, now once the wheel is off and your gloves are on, you're going to grab your 11/16 wrench and you're going to put it right in there. Now again, I know this requires a metric. I don't have a metric that's thin enough to get in there. And you're going to put your 14mm socket on the nut on the bottom part of this caliper. If you notice, there are 2 bolts. You got this bolt here and you got this bolt here. You want to remove the bottom one, and what you're going to do is you're simply going to swivel out and up the caliper out of the way and expose your brakes. Just like that. Okay, there's a couple little clips and you're just going to squeeze them and pull them out. Just like that. You don't necessarily have to save those because when you buy new brakes, the new brakes come with new clips. And at this point you're going to carefully just pull the brake pads out. The outside brake pad goes out and the inside brake pad will slide towards the other direction. Just put a little muscle into it and it'll pop right out. And we can see from these brake pads that they're actually quite worn down. Pretty thin compared to a new brake pad, which is got a whole lot more meat on it. Okay. Alright, so what I like to do is I like to lay these parts out, lay the old brake pad and the new brake pad on a piece of cardboard or a piece of paper, and you're going to need to replace these little clips. These are little sensors right here. One here, and we're going to have to take the new brake pad and put a new clip or a new sensor on there, and they always give you a bag of parts. So just look for the ones that match up, and when you align these 2 brake pads on the ground, you can see the configuration. You can easily just figure out exactly how those pieces go on. Just do it exactly like the other one. And there's one set of brake pads. And as long as we're working on this, let's do the other one. as well. Going to lay out the brake pads like that, make sure it's lined up, get the little clip. Whoops, get a little clip. And we're going to pop that one on there like that. These things are actually sensors, so what happens is the brake pad wears down. This little prong right here, I'm not sure if you can see this little prong right here, will start to scrape into this rotor, which will give you that squeal, and it'll also carve a groove into your rotor if you're not careful. You don't want to ever get down to the point where that sensor is starting to squeal on your wheel. That way, at that point you know it's long overdue to change your brakes. So in this case, you can see the brake pads are wearing down, but they're not quite to the point where the sensor is grinding against the rotor. It's close, but not quite. Now, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to compress the caliper pistons back in. Now, a lot of people are going to start getting all crazy. Oh, you got to loosen up the master cylinder cap and everything else. But I'm telling you, and it's going to be people coming out of the woodwork arguing about this, and that's fine. Everybody's got their own opinion. It doesn't matter a whole lot, and I'll tell you why. That is not a sealed thing. It's a plastic cap on a plastic container. It does have a little rubber gasket on it, but it's not something you need to worry about. You can easily squeeze this in. You're not going to blow out any brake lines, nothing like that. It's going to very gradually push in some of the fluids, and you can do, in the front here, you'll notice that you have actually a dual caliper. It's got dual pistons. You have this one here and this one here, and if you're not careful when you squeeze one in, the other one likes to come out a little bit. But you can do them one at a time and squeeze them in with a C-clamp, and you'll have no problem at all. You're not going to have to loosen up the cap on the master cylinder, and you're not going to have to bleed the brakes or anything crazy like that. You're just simply squeezing them in a little bit, just so you can get the new brake pads on and over the rotor, so that you can put the whole thing back together again. And you can see this whole thing literally will take about 15 minutes for the front. The hardest part about this job is taking the wheel off and putting the wheel back on. And again, we're just squeezing this in a little bit. And once it's squeezed in, don't squeeze it too much because you got to be careful. There's a rubber part of the caliper right there, and that piston, you can rupture that, and that's when you're going to have a problem. You want to keep that in good condition, so just be careful. Now, once we got the pistons compressed in on the calipers, I want you to take a look at these little guides that are placed in the outside part of the caliper here. It's like a bracket, really, but basically you want to pop these little pieces of metal out, and they are, and the reason why you want to pop them out is to give you new ones, and I guess the spring tension will loosen up over time. Those things are what's going to hold and guide the new brake pad in, and the old ones pop out in 2 seconds with your fingers, no tools required, and the top ones, the same exact thing. You can pop them out with your fingers, and you can pop the new one right in. I guess you could use a little screwdriver to pry that off, but and you're going to pop the new one in just like that, and you're going to also do the same exact thing on the inside. There's one there and one there. Alright, once you got your calipers put in, your little clips put in, make sure you go ahead and you spray these parts down a little bit, because what happens is your hands get very dirty, and you don't want to spread the dirt and the grease to all over without cleaning it before putting it back together. Okay? So I kind of like this product. Now, I'm going to link all these parts in the description. You'll be able to buy them and have them delivered to your house if you want. Now, before I handle the new brake pads, what I like to do is I like to change my gloves. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Put a new pair of gloves on right now, and because you don't want to contaminate your new brake pads with a bunch of grease and brake dust and everything else, and so we're just going to go ahead and change our gloves right now. Alright, so now what I do is I usually grab one of the old brake pads just to take a look and see how it was aligned. So you can see these two marks right here. Those are going to line up very nicely with this, so that tells you it's an inside pad, and the angle of and the direction of the actual pad and the way it's configured, you'll be able to grab the new one and set it the same exact way. And place it in. Alright, same thing with the other one. We're going to just take that pad and we're going to place it where it's supposed to go based on the configuration of it and the shape of the rotor. Once you get that in, you go ahead and you put your tiny little, you're going to go ahead and put your clips in. Those are the ones that came out before, but they give you some replacements. There's a reason for all these parts. This is like a spring, and essentially what it does, it helps to keep the brakes off the rotor when you're not compressing the brakes. You can see what it does, it holds them apart. See that? Now, what I like to do, and what you should do, to prevent any kind of squealing, because you never know, is you're going to take some of this brake grease. Okay, no, you don't put it on the pads, you're going to put it on the contact points between the back side of the pad and the caliper. And again, the purpose is, if you're going to have any vibration, you know, squealing and sound is caused by some sort of vibration at some point. So you're going to use this to prevent any kind of squealing. And you see where I'm putting it? On these parts right here. Anything that makes contact with a pad. But don't put it on the rotor and don't put it on the face of the pad. That's going to cause you to have a brake failure or to not have good brakes. Alright, so now once that's done, you're going to go ahead and you're going to swing your caliper back into place. So once you get the brake caliper back into position, you're going to go ahead and you're going to take your bolt and you're going to just finger screw it back in. And make sure you catch the threads before you put the wrench on it. Otherwise you're going to strip things out and that's not going to be good. Hold on a second. Now we're going to go ahead and put the wheel back on, and you're going to repeat the same exact procedure for the other side. Make sure when you put your lug nuts back on, you put them on in a crosswise star pattern, and you're going to also torque them, and again the torque specifications will be left in the description. Don't blame me for not torquing them. I'm not torquing them, but if you want to torque them, go ahead. I just drop my foot on them and step on them, and that makes it nice and tight. I've never broken a lug nut, I've never broken a stud, I've never had a wheel fall off, but if it makes you feel better, I'm going to give you the torque specifications. Go ahead. Anyway guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope it was helpful. Please share it with your friends, neighbors, and your relatives. And have a great day.